Chris Martin with Creative Domain, and today's quick tip tutorial is creating a wet map. So I've got my animation here, and basically we have the liquid being thrown out of the bucket here, and it lands on the poster of me. And by the way, this wonderful picture was taken by my incredibly talented partner over at 1618 Designs, Rosie Israel. If you ever go over there, you can take a look at some of her stuff. Photography from all over the world. Incredible stuff. But anyway, back to the tutorial. So, if you'll look here, what we've got is we've got this this poster, and when the liquid hits it, it leaves behind what's called a wet map. And this is really nothing more than an animated texture that's generated out of RealfLow. So it basically looks at where the particles are interacting with the cube here, and creates that little wet map look, and then it dries up. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm actually going to do this tutorial, I think, in two parts, just because of the length and the amount of information. So this will be part one of the tutorial. So let's go ahead and get into Cinema here, and I'll show you the scene that I have set up. I've got my cube over here and my bucket, and I've got a simple animation where take a look at it from a different angle here. The bucket is just animating up over, I think, 15 frames. So we're going to fill the bucket with liquid, and it's going to throw it onto the cube. Something to keep in mind here with the cube, typically we don't have to triangulate in RealfLow 4 before we send it over to RealfLow, triangulate our mesh. But in this instance, when I'm using the wet map, I found that I needed to triangulate this cube. Select the cube and go to Functions, Triangulate. Because if I didn't do that, it wasn't allowing me to see the texture when I got into RealfLow. So just keep that in mind. Definitely triangulate your mesh here if you're going to try and recreate this tutorial. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Plugins, Next Limit, SD Export, and I'm going to select my cube and my cylinder, which is this and this. I'm going to give it a path. We'll call this Splat. Save that, and we'll save the SD file. Now let's jump over here into RealfLow, and we'll give it a path as well. Create that. Now let's go up and import our mesh. Okay, so we've loaded our mesh, and what we want to do first is we want to select the cube. We want to come over here to Node, Dynamics, Rigid Body, and for the primitive type we want to select Mesh. Now we want our texture to show up on here, because if we don't have a texture mapped on here from our 3D package, then there's no way for RealfLow to calculate the interaction between the particles and this cube here in order to create the wet map. So we got to make sure that we have UV coordinates applied to this, and that's why we that's why we have this mapped on here in the first place. So that being said, let's go over here to Texture in the Display tab, and we want to show texture and say yes, and then we want to come up here to the Texture tab and load the texture. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this 180 degrees, minus 180, Alright. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we are going to fill up this bucket with our liquid. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use the fill object, and I am going to set the parameters here. We're going to use a liquid. I am going to set the resolution to 3, the density to 4,000, the internal pressure to 16, the external pressure, we'll leave that at 1, the viscosity, I believe we're going to leave that at 1 as well. I'm sorry, the internal pressure is 16, the external pressure is 1. Viscosity, we're going to keep that at, we're going to actually move that to 25. These are just some numbers that I was playing around with, and it seemed to work out with these particular numbers. And I think that is going to do it. The max particle is 50,000, that's fine. And the fill object, we want to select the cylinder. And the fill volume, we want to say yes. Okay, so now you can see we have our particles in the bucket here. Now we're going to need to let these settle for a while, and when I say a while, I mean, you know, if I were you, I would let these settle for a couple hours. It just works out better that way. So I'm going to go ahead and put a gravity in here. I am going to put a kill volume, and on the kill volume I am going to say fit to scene, and then I'm actually going to widen that out just a little bit in both directions. Pull it up. Okay. And for the purposes of settling these particles down, I'm going to use a speed kill, and I'm going to say limit and keep yes, and the max speed, we'll put it at 1. So now I'm going to lock my timeline here, and I'm going to click simulate. And these particles are going to start to settle. So that's going to do it for the first part of this tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and let these settle. I'm probably going to run this simulation for a few hours, and when we come back in part 2, we will actually do the simulation, take this back into Cinema 4D and get it all set up, and then in the end I believe we're going to take this into After Effects and just do the a little post work on it. So that is the quick tip tutorial for today. This is the first part of setting up the wet map feature in Realflow. Hope that helps.